Dealing with garden disappointment. What do you do when stuff stops working? Here at Black Gumbo, I always try to tell you I'm going to show you my successes, and I'm going to really hype up my successes, but I'm also going to show you my failures or my disappointments, the things that don't work out, or the things that really I had high hopes for, but circumstances just didn't work out. You know, pestilence, disease, weather, all these things contribute to derail your gardening fun, your gardening plans, your harvests, your joy. And you can attack that disappointment in several ways. You can give up, you can just quit for a while and have a break, or you can see it as an opportunity. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see it as an opportunity. I'm going to go in this summer as the heat kills off some of my plants. I'm going to grow heat-tolerant plants, and I'm going to really plug in things that the summer won't affect. Things like cowpeas, peppers, eggplant, sweet potatoes. There's all kinds of crops you can grow throughout the summer that do well in Zone 9A, or maybe even in your zone. I mean, the zones don't really speak to, if you live in Zone 8, for example, you might have a worse summer than me. It might be hotter there in the summer because of the circumstances of your climate and your geography. The zones are really pinned on last frost date and first frost date, the averages on both sides. And, well, you know, your frost date might be later than mine, but your summers might be hotter than mine. It all depends on climate. You know, I've got the Gulf breeze coming off the Gulf of Mexico, which keeps our temperatures about 5 to 10 degrees lower than like up in Dallas. You know, they get summers it gets 110 degrees there. I couldn't garden in that kind of weather very easily. Well, here it gets up to 100, 102, 105 during the summers and stays there for weeks at a time. And that really does a number on plants, especially the tomato plants, the things that were in my garden that I really wanted to taste. I love tomatoes. I thrive on gardening tomatoes. And there are heat-tolerant varieties. There are varieties that actually do grow through the summer. They get kind of scraggly. They look bad, but sometimes there's varieties out there that will do well. I've had good luck with Romas, just plain old Roma tomatoes. They seem to do well through the summer, and though they're a determinant, they tend to drag out their flush of fruit over a more extended period of time than some other determinants. And so Roma tomatoes have done well for me. They'll grow well into the summer, but I don't have any Romas right now. I've been growing these crazy varieties, these heirlooms some of my favorite varieties, and I really hope to get some. Yeah, but we had a little bit of difficulty now. It got hot early, and some of my plants are just dead. They turn brown and shriveled up and they're dead. My single seed challenge, it's got fruit on it, it's got a little bit of growth on it, but for the most part, it's dead, it gave in. And that's because it's a Russian variety. It's from a more temperate climate. It does better in temperate climates. This is my single seed challenge, and you can see that it looks just about dead, but the fruits are ripening up and it still has some growth at the tips. So this plant is technically still alive, although it's only really alive down at the growing ends. And these fruits, they're hard as rocks. So I'm hopeful that these might ripen up. I'm going to take some of them in and see if they'll ripen indoors. In fact, I'm going to do that now. Take the big ones in. Maybe a little one too. And I'm going to leave the other 4 fruits out here to ripen up on the vine, if they will. And that's the problem with tomatoes, for example. The disappointment is it gets too hot for tomatoes to ripen on the vine. Tomatoes need about, they can handle 85 degrees at the top, maybe even you could push it up to 90. Some of my tomatoes get ripe when it's this hot, but it takes them forever. Some of my tomatoes just had put on fruit and the green fruit's just been sitting there for weeks and weeks and weeks. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going to get ripened outside. I'll need to bring them in. Tomato plants don't set fruit in this heat. The pollen is not viable over 85 or so degrees during the days. And that's a problem. I've got all these plants out there and they're putting on some growth, and some of them are still growing, and the ones that haven't died, they're still kind of struggling along, but they're not going to put on any fruit. So what am I going to do? I'm going to view it as an opportunity and pull them out and put summer crops in. That's how I'm going to deal with the disappointments. I'm going to turn them into opportunities. Here's one of my disappointments right here. I have this tomato, and you can see it's mostly crispy, brown, dry. Half the plant's dead. I've got this vine growing here with fruit on it that probably won't come to ripeness, but I'm going to kind of leave it there for now. But this has to come out soon, and I need to replace it. So Disappointment. Here's another disappointment. Look at this tomato. Bird damage. That's sad, huh? Now I could save seeds from this if I wanted to. It's already kind of fermenty, but yeah, I'm not gonna. Into the burn pile. Disappointment. Right? You've got to have the right outlook. You've got to learn how to beat the weather if you live in harsh climates like we do. You've got to learn how to plant early. You've got to learn what crops go in at what time. And I get this question all the time. Is it too late for me to plant tomatoes? Is it too late for me to plant beans? Is it too late for me to plant lettuce? Yeah, in my area, yeah, you can't plant lettuce anytime soon. It'll just grow a bunch of weed seeds or seed heads and bolt. I get these questions all the time, and so my suggestion to you, if you are wondering what can I plant now, what can I plant in this season of my garden, is go to your local county extension office. If you live in the United States, most counties have an agricultural extension office, which is, you know, usually linked to a university, and it's usually state or federally funded, and they publish a chart. It's a real handy chart, and that's the chart that I usually go by. And on that chart, it'll tell you what are the best planting times for every crop of vegetable. And so go by that chart and plan. So if you're going to start seeds, look at the planting time on that chart, and if it says the best planting time for this crop is mid-March, then count 8 weeks back and start your seeds then. So that would be what, late February, something like that. That's how you plan your garden, and that's how you can have more success, right? A lot of new gardeners come in and they get the gardening bug in the middle of spring because they go to the garden center and they find all these tomato plants and all these vegetables out on display, and they think, wow, I'm going to start a garden. Oftentimes it's too late by then. You know, you should have been starting your garden a little bit earlier, and they get frustrated and their plants die in the heat and they quit. Don't quit. Keep going. Learn a little bit. This is the gardener's mindset. When stuff doesn't work out, you start over. When stuff doesn't work out, you see that as an opportunity to either, if you can't plant anything during that time, improve your soil, right? Mulch your soil and cover that soil with a thick layer of grass clippings and leaves, and let it sit there through the hottest part of the summer. And if any weeds poke up, go and pluck those weeds out. Take the opportunity to improve your soil so that when opportunity comes around again and the fall comes around again and it's time to put things in, and you look at your chart and you see, oh, October is a good time to plant my fall garden, your soil will be well amended. It'll be ready. You can rake all that mulch off and put it over to the side, and you'll have nice soil down there with worms, and it'll be real good for you. And you can plant directly in that soil and you'll have a thriving fall garden. So that's how you deal with disappointment. You have to see it as an opportunity. Look at this. These are my Armenian cucumbers, and it actually does look like the powdery mildew has subsided a bit. I mean, here's some right here. There's still some there, but all the new growth is just fine, and there's no more new powdery mildew coming on. So if I let these grow, they'll continue to produce. Phoebe, get out of the garden. Hey, get out of the garden. Phoebe's not supposed to be in the garden. So yeah, maybe I'll just leave them there until it's time to plant cowpeas, because I'm going to put cowpeas in this little section. Now, here's another one that's still growing but suffering a little bit. This one, the storm blew down this tomato here. That's a disappointment, but I'm letting it sprawl and it's actually doing quite well. So those, I hope they'll ripen. There's another way you can deal with seasonal disappointments, like when the weather gets too hot and you're like, man, I really want to be out in my garden, but if I go out there, I'm going to get heat stroke. I can't go out there right now. Go in the evenings. It's a little bit cooler, but even around here, even in the evenings, it's still pretty blazing hot, and the mosquitoes are out, and you go out there, you get chewed up, and it's just no fun to be in your garden. You can take that opportunity to do indoor projects. I've got some seeds right there that need to be separated from the plant, right? They've been drying in my garage, and those are my turnip seeds for my fall garden. That's a project I can do. I can feel like I'm gardening. I can work in my garden in the house by separating those seeds out. You can take some of your produce that you've got from your garden now, cook with it, preserve it, put it away, feel like you're doing something well. You can save seeds from your tomato plants that did mature tomatoes. Those tomatoes that the birds ate that are nice and ripe on the vine, but there's bugs all over them, take those and throw them in a jar, put some water in there, let them ferment, and then filter out the seeds and dry them. And you've saved seed for your next garden. Feel like you're doing something in the garden, right? You're saving seeds. There's always something you can do. You can garden indoors. You can grow microgreens. You can do house plants. You can grow in a windowsill where it's still cool, but you still get plenty of sun. So yeah, there's something always you can do. There's always something you can do in the garden. Don't be discouraged. If you're a new gardener and you just started and things didn't work out and all your plants died and you realize, wow, I didn't start in the right time, don't give up. Don't give up. That's how we learn. I guess they say we fall forward or we fail forward. That's true. When you make mistakes, guess what you have? You have wisdom. You have knowledge. You have the ability to do it differently next time because you have experience. You've done it, you failed, now you know what not to do next time. You still might make mistakes. You still might have, timing issues, but at least now you know a little bit more than you knew when you started. So gardening can always be encouraging, even with problems out there, even with when you go out there and you find a dead plant, and you're like, oh man, I'm not going to get any of those this year. Well, there's an opportunity to put something else in. Keep your chin up. When I like to pick them to avoid the disappointment. That's a good tomato. That's just a little, I think they call it cat facing, or yeah, that's just natural in these heirlooms. I'll pick it right there. It's a little soft, and we'll take that one in. This one right here also, we'll take this one in because that's going to attract birds if I leave that there. So I'll pick that, and that will ripen indoors. Oh, here's one. I'm surprised the birds didn't even get this one yet. That's going to be a real good one. This is Wood's Famous Brimmer. It's my favorite tomato this year, and it's heavy producer, as you can see. It's got tomatoes all over it, and I've already picked dozens off of here, and it's still growing, and it doesn't seem like the heat is affecting this one as much as some of the others. It produces these good-sized tomatoes, and this has not been a disappointment. The disappointment's when the fruit turn orange and the birds get them. Hey, thank you for joining me on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Please like our channel, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.